language is such a powerful tool, and the way we phrase things, whether we write, whether we speak, that's how we are vegan in the first place. I think it required, going back to Gary Ofsky, such a powerful speaker, someone who you're really drawn on his every word when he speaks.
Yeah.
You can't even press pause because you're so hooked on what he's saying next, and that's why he's so effective. So it's not just about, it's all well and good just showing people, hey, these are some lovely, delicious vegan foods you can eat. But I think the power of language is the most important thing in activism.
Yeah, I agree with you. When you start thinking of animal slaughter as murder, and when you start thinking of artificial insemination as rape, and when you start thinking of the dairy industry as infanticide and kidnapping and things like that, it's like it puts it into perspective. It really puts it into perspective. It also
exactly, because
go on.
We use these cute little terms, don't we, to describe all the atrocities. We say the animal is being dressed, aka the animal is being murdered.
Dressed.
I've actually heard farmers use that term, dressed. We say, the cow is being artificially inseminated, aka raped. And here's a really weird one. When they toss off a bull or something to get their semen to stick into the female animal, they call that in the industry, I think it's drawing straws. They love just giving these cute little terms to disguise the absurdities and the atrocities taking place. And then they have the audacity to call vegans weird after doing all these things. You've just jacked off a bull and you're calling me weird for eating an apple.
Yeah, and I think it's also funny that they think that we're being extreme in our language when we call it rape and murder, etc. But they're more than happy to call tossing off a bull as drawing straws. Like they're quite okay with labeling and playing euphemism games and labeling things with ridiculous names. But vegans are the ones that are extreme and weird. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you did a great post the other day about euphemisms, right? It was because of the whole Gary cheese thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were talking about how, because the girl went on a rant about call it Gary for all I care, it's not cheese. But you made a great point as if non-vegans are really so concerned about euphemisms being used, then they can stop using these ridiculous terms to call things, to disguise things as to what they actually really are. You can start calling bacon pig flesh, and you can start calling, milk nipple juice, or whatever it was that you'd said.
Yeah, because that would be being consistent in that case, right?
Yeah. They're the worst people of all to use euphemisms. I don't know why they want to talk about vegans calling stuff cheese. How is that a bad thing? When they're the biggest culprits of all when it comes to
exactly. Exactly. Well, don't call it cheese. It's not cheese. Well, don't call it fucking bacon. It's not fucking bacon.
Exactly.
Yeah, it really bothers me how non-vegans want to claim these words like cream and cheese and ice cream and don't call it meat. Vegan meat or meatless meat. We call it whatever. It shouldn't be called meat in the first place. It should be called flesh. It shouldn't be called sirloin or whatever term we give it. It's just insane. So yeah.
The thing is, terms evolve anyway, and I think in the future when we have let's say we have a vegan world in the future and we've got products on our shelf that are called bacon. I think bacon in the future is not going to be pig flesh. It's actually going to be, it could be some smoked aubergines or some smoked tempeh or whatever with, salted with smoked paprika on them or whatever. And the people in the shop, like we do now with mince pies, when we say, hey, did you know in Victorian times, mince pies literally had mincemeat in them or whatever, they'll be saying, hey, did you know bacon, in the 20th, 21st century, blah, 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 that come from a pig, they'll be saying.
Exactly, 100%, man. And, I think Gary Roski was right when he said in that interview Israeli news reporter when he said,
The woman one or the bloke?
I think it was the woman one, and when she
Yeah.
said,
Oh yeah.
I
Of course.
noticed you
She
call
was
it
awful.
I noticed you call it cow skin instead of leather,"
Yeah.
and he said, "Well, that's what it is." And then I think it's interesting when he said, "I think that's the reason why this atrocity exists and why it's continuing to exist." And when you mention this to a non-vegan, you say, well, it should be called cow flesh or something like that. And they're like, well, I'm quite aware that it's cow flesh. You don't need to try and make it more real for me because I'm totally connected to the reality of what I'm eating, which is such bullshit because
Yeah.
it's if they were actually connected, I think in all fairness, I actually do think that that is true. If we walked into a store, like my whole life growing up, if I was walking into a store and buying stuff and I was constantly reminded that this is pig flesh, this is cow flesh, this is cow skin, this is etc., I would be constantly being reminded that I eat animals and
Yeah.
I'm an animal eater. You know, like I wear animals and I eat animals. Whereas in this society, it's been so distorted, it makes it seem like they're just like a carrot or they're just like a
Yeah.
piece of fabric. Uh,
Yeah.
like, you know, they're just a resource. They're not living sentient beings like we are.
Like never once in my whole life, like say through school when I wore leather shoes every single day at school, not even once did I even consider that leather was cow flesh on my feet, and all the other kids in the playground had cow flesh on their feet. We were kicking footballs with our shoes made of cow flesh every single day. Never even occurred to me. That's how distorted we are from the reality of our choices.
Yeah.
And it is just ridiculous, as you say, that animals have been objectified to such an extent that we don't even consider them victims anymore. They are literally now, they're just seen as objects, pieces of fabric, shoes, sofas,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And that's one of the things that's one of the reasons why this is taking so long. It's because
Yeah.
when you talk to someone about these issues, they just think, "Oh God, you're just being so extreme and stuff like that." But
Yeah.
it's because these have been hidden so well. Like it makes it hard for you to bring up the topic. Like when you say, I don't want to play with that football. I don't want to wear those shoes because it contains leather. You're like, oh God, you're a vegan, aren't you? Like you just take things so far. You're so sensitive. But if we lived in a world where it was called cow skin, then it would be easier for you to say, I'm vegan and I don't want to wear that. And it'd be like, well, that's understandable. You don't necessarily agree with animal cruelty. Like it would be a bit more understandable, I think. It'd be a bit easier to be that person. You know?
Yeah, of course. And that's what these euphemisms do. They distract us from what the item really is.
Yeah.
And it just furthers our desensitization to it and further promotes the idea that animals are objects.